While Tokoname is perhaps the most famous town of Kyusu production in Japan, on the other side of Ise Bay, in the town of Yokkaichi, there is another pottery tradition known for their exquisite purple clay teapots, Banko-yaki. To learn more about this ceramic tradition, I visited the home and workshop of Banko-yaki artists Suigetsu Touen, who have centered their craft around the production of Kyusu since their founding in 1869. Their founder, Suigetsu Kozaburo, began crafting teapots after retiring as a postmaster as part of the revival of Banko-yaki. Before this time, Banko-yaki briefly existed in the mid to late 1700s as highly decorative glazed wares. Unlike most Japanese ceramic traditions which are named after the place they are produced in, Banko-yaki gets its name from the phrase Banko-ueki, eternally unchanging. Today, Suigetsu is headed by third-generation potter Shimizu Suigetsu, who succeeded his father in 1993. Alongside his wife, Shimizu Kishio, they received numerous rewards and recognitions for their works, including formal presentations to the princess and crown prince, and to the emperor in his ascension to the throne in 1990. They have also presented chawan to the Ise Grand Shrine and created beautiful painted sake cups for use in the 2016 G7 conference. Their eldest son, Shimizu Jun, gave us a demonstration of their craftsmanship and techniques, as well as a tour of their workshop and kiln. Our visit happened to coincide with that of two reporters from the Mie prefectural government writing about traditional crafts. The first step to making a kyusu is, of course, throwing each part on the pottery wheel. One reason kyusu are so difficult to make is that they are made from 5 separate pieces assembled together: the body, the handle, the spout, the lid, and the filter. All but that last one are thrown by hand on the pottery wheel. Here, Shimizu-sensei is throwing off the hump, a common technique in Japan in which a large amount of clay is placed on the wheel, allowing multiple pieces to be thrown from the same clay. First up is the body of the teapot. Those of you with an eye for pottery might notice that the wheel is spinning clockwise, which is the opposite to how it spins in most pottery traditions outside of Japan and Korea. It is theorized that this stems from earlier hand-spun and kick wheel practices. A chamois cloth is used to smooth out the rim before carefully shaping the shelf on which the lid rests by using the nail of the thumb through the cloth. Shimizu-sensei then checks the size of the opening using a tool known as a tombo, which is the Japanese word for dragonfly, named because of its shape. Once the lid rest is done, Shimizu-sensei moves to the inside of the pot, smoothing it with a spatula and using a wooden mold to perfectly contour the shape. Next up is the lid, which is thrown upside down. Once again, it is smoothed with a wooden mold and its size is checked with a tombo. The tsumami or lid knob will be shaped later during the trimming phase once the clay has dried a bit. Next is the spout. This requires the use of a long, slender tool to shape the inside of the narrow opening. Because it is made hollow, it can easily be removed from the hump using the spatula without needing to use the wire. Lastly, the handle is shaped, and because it is also hollow, it can be cut off using the spatula as well. The last piece is the strainer, which isn't thrown on the wheel, but instead made by hand using a wooden mold.
じゃあ、格子の道具見せましょう。はい、薄く伸ばした粘土をこの型に乗せます。そして、これがポンス、穴開ける道具です。はい。これを使って、こういった穴を。
乾燥でサイズが違いますか？
小さくなります。25% ぐらい小さくなります。 すごい小さくなる。だから釉薬がいらないっていうのはそこなの。粘土がキューッと小さくなるから、粘土が焼き締まる。吸水性がなくなるんです。だからもう水がこぼれない、染み込まない。
Now you might be thinking, hang on David, the teapots you have on the table in front of you are purple, but the clay being thrown is yellow. How does this work?
これがシデっていうバンコ焼きの粘土です。非常にきめ細かいです。
で、なんで紫になりますか？
鉄分が多いんですよ。
鉄分。
はい。還元焼成で焼くからああいう色になる。酸化焼成で焼くと赤くなります。
シュレみたい。
シュレみたいです。
還元か。
還元です。はい。要は、鉄と酸素が結合すると要は鉄サビみたいな赤くなるんですね。はい。それがそのシュレの赤です。
Let's break this down a little further. In kangen shosei, or reduction firing, this is a kiln atmosphere devoid of oxygen. The iron in the clay turns it a sort of blackish bluey color. Conversely, in sanka shosei, which is an oxidizing atmosphere, meaning there is plenty of fresh oxygen in the air for the clay to react with, the iron present in the clay oxidizes, turning it a rust red. When a reduction-fired kiln is switched off and air is allowed into the chamber, it brings with it fresh oxygen, and this causes the surface of the teapot to oxidize a little bit. And if you remember from art class, blue from reduction and red from oxidization added together equal purple-ish. You might remember from our video on tokoname-yaki, which you can find over here, that Honshude, which is the famous clay in that region, is also a sort of yellowish color before the vibrant red is brought out by being fired in an oxidizing kiln. You might be wondering what would happen if you fired the Banko clay in an oxidizing kiln, and the answer is you'd get a bright red teapot that looks quite similar to the Shude in Tokoname. And this makes sense because after all, the two towns are not that far apart, meaning the clay isn't too dissimilar.
それは酸化焼成ですね。
これは酸化焼成。これね。はい。
あ、全然違う。
これ一緒の土だけど、こんだけ色が変わるってことです。
After the incredibly difficult work of throwing and trimming the pieces is done, next comes the even more difficult work of taking these pieces and assembling them together into a finished teapot.
どっちは一番難しいですか？
一番難しいのはやっぱりこの胴体かな。口なんかも細くするのも薄くしないとダメですから難しいですよ。でただその急須っていうのはこの後の作業が非常に大変で、このひっつけるタイミング、硬さ、はい、全部一緒の硬さで、ちょっとずつ乾燥させながら、そして、ひっつけたり。はい。だからこれだけ乾いてしまうと、もうすごい傷が入りやすいですよ。であとそのこういうつける角度。これひっつくんだけど、お茶の切れを良くするためには、ここの口先の処理が非常に大事なんです。はい。これもうちょっと乾いてからの作業なんだけど、ここをね、ちょっと曲げてあげるんですよ。こういう感じで、口先をね、ちょっとこうやって曲げてあげる。そうすることによってお茶の切れが非常に良くなる。はい。で、そういうのを丁寧に仕上げて、急須ができていると。
After the pieces dry to the right hardness and are assembled, the joins must be smoothed and the surface must be made clear of any imperfections.
すぐちゃんこっち向いてベーってしたら。こっち向いてベー。
The pots must be fully dried before being fired. The main firing takes place in this gas kiln.
はい。で、これだんだん積み上げていく。そしてこの釜の中いっぱいになるまで作品を詰めて30時間かけて1170度ぐらいで焼きます。はい、還元焼成で、そうするとこういう急須が焼き上がる。
これがレール式になってるのは何ですか？
そう、これ 作品を詰めるときはこれ出しますよ。
あ
はい。
あ、へえ。なるほど。
これこの出た状態で
はい。
作業やってた方がやりやすいですからね。
そうですね。
こっち側からも詰めたりできますから。
After the main reduction firing at 1160 degrees Celsius, any decorative elements, such as painting or gold decorations, will be applied.
で、この電気窯っていうのは、金を焼き付けたり、
あ
あと、絵付け、Mori-e、
うん
Mori-e を焼いたりするのをこの電気窯で焼きます。
あ、なるほど。絵付けの作品は2回焼きました。
一番短くても2回、
うん
もっと3回、4回焼くこともあります。はい、やっぱり塗っては焼いて、塗っては焼いて、徐々に厚みをつけて、
The distinctive style of painting used by Suigetsu is called Mori-e, and this dates back to Mori Yusetsu, who is considered to be the father of Banko-yaki's revival in the mid-1800s. Shimizu Kishio-sensei has continued this technique and has even started a club to teach and preserve it. Mori-e produces distinctly opaque colors which are raised from the surface of the teapot, giving them a dimensional look but also a tactile sensation in the hand.
パターンと形のインスピレーションは何ですか？
パターンっていうのは別に日本の伝統的な文様、パターンもありますよね。はい。で、そういうものを取り入れることもあるし、で、さらにそこに自分なりの新しい今の現代の感覚のデザインを入れていくこともできますし、はい。その辺はもう自分で考えてやっていくと。絵もそうですよ。Mori-eも。はい。伝統的なデザインの絵もあれば、はい、今っぽいデザインを考えて作れることもできますし。
In addition to Mori-e, Suigetsu employ a variety of other decoration styles. One that I was drawn to in particular is used on this Kyusu. These vertical stripes are made by carving away layers of clay after firing. As I mentioned earlier, the distinctive purple color comes from a thin layer of slightly oxidized clay on the surface. So by scraping this away, you reveal the bluish color of the clay underneath. By varying how much clay is removed, you can achieve a range of colors as seen here. In addition to its distinctive purple color, Banko clay is also known for its ability to improve the taste of tea. It is said to reduce bitterness and astringency, softening the flavors. Today I have two examples of the Mori-e technique. Here on this Marugata Kyusu, we have a beautiful depiction of white plum blossoms, or ume. I can really feel the raised texture of these plum blossoms. This Nasugata, or eggplant-shaped Kyusu, has a design of kiku, or chrysanthemums. With 4 colors, this was fired an additional 4 times in the kiln after the main firing. Both of these Kyusu were painted by Kishio-sensei, and as you can see, she's really good at it. This Yunomi has a more abstract design on the inside, where it is painted white. This lets you see the true color of the tea when there's tea in it. The outside has a completely smooth finish which shows off the beautiful purple color of the clay. I really also like the high foot on this cup. It makes it feel like a little goblet full of magic. When visiting their house and workshop, it was clear to see the Shimizu family's knowledge, passion, and commitment to their craft. It is an absolute honor to meet and work with such a historic and skilled family.
どの部分が一番楽しいですか？
やっぱり自分の考えで、その形いろんなものを作れるんですよね。はい。で、新しいものもだんだん開発もできるし、手作りですから、その型で作るのと違っても、自分の思い通りのものが作れていく。はい。やっぱそういうのがやっぱり陶芸の楽しいところですね。またその粘土を変えたり、焼き方を変えたりして、そういう新しいことも研究もできますし、はい、楽しいですね。
I hope you enjoyed today's video about this slightly lesser known teapot tradition in Japan. If you want to see more videos out in the field where we visit kilns, tea farms, and tea houses and talk to the artists, artisans, and craftspeople who make these traditions possible, consider subscribing to this channel. If you enjoyed this video and want to support this channel and the artists that we feature, visit our online shop. Thank you very much for watching. Have a cup of tea and a very nice day.